I got this from Andis, and I didn't use it for the longest time. They send me stuff to try and to work with, and I was like, oh, not using that. And one day I was like, okay, I'm gonna do my due diligence and get my tool out and use it. And I was absolutely amazed at the difference that it makes. I can get more coat out with this tool than I can progressing through a series of coarse, medium, fine in another tool set, and it only comes in one. It's just this one. It doesn't come in coarse, medium, fine, it just has this one. I use it on, and you just wanna be sure to hold your hide tight, and so you're not pulling the skin with the tool, just hold your hide tight and just rake it through the coat. It's okay, sweetie. And it just will start to take out all that dead coat. If you have a thick area, you can kind of go at it in shorter strokes. And then when it thins out, like here, it's not hardly getting any grab. I can smooth out and do some longer strokes. I use this a lot on sporting dogs and terriers, which would be the most obvious and common uses for the tool. But less commonly known uses would be like, for example, a standard poodle that has big, puffy Princess Leia ears. You can rake those out a little bit, deshed those a little bit, and get them to lay a little bit smoother. You can overdo it, so you want to be careful not to rake a standard poodle's ears until there's nothing left. But it does a really nice job of thinning that. The other thing too is don't be afraid to use it backwards. A lot of people are really afraid to use it backwards, but like on feet and stuff, you can go up and thin out the feet. So one of the things that's really important about a tool like this is that you will hear people in the industry say that it breaks coat or it cuts coat. It really doesn't. If you wanted to come inspect the hair that I'm pulling out, you would find that the hair is not broken or cut. However, if you're concerned about that, I would ask you to look at what the dog you're doing is. If you're doing somebody's prize show dog, err on the side of caution. You certainly wouldn't want to do damage to the coat. If you felt like it was going to do damage to the coat, don't use this technique. But for what we do on a daily basis, which is the pet grooming, that we just need to get a lot of coat out of, we need to just get some coat out, we need to get some shed out, we need to get some coat out and make some money. In that case, if the tool were to cut a few hairs, break a few hairs, doesn't really make a difference because the dog has too much hair anyway. I don't find it to be true, but I always just give that little disclaimer because there are a lot of people who would say it's going to break coat or cut coat. And there are situations when you might not want to take that risk. But for everyday pet grooming, it's fine. It's going to be fine. So I'll start by going down on the feet, but then if I wanted to get a little bit more bulk out, I would go up. This works really nicely on, say, a English cocker that looks more like a regular cocker that has like so much leg furnishing on the front of the front legs that you can't tell that it's an English cocker. If you rake the front legs backwards, you'll get that down to a reasonable amount of coat that you can then hand strip and thinning shear. Again, if it's somebody's prize show dog, maybe go a more natural route, but in the case that it's that overgrown, even if it is a show dog, it's been let go, so just get the coat out. You can rake in a pattern. So for example, for this little guy, I would want to rake his shoulders nice and smooth, but maybe I want to leave a little bit more coat on the forechest, so I won't rake that as much. You can actually set a pattern with a rake by using the edge of the rake to set your pattern. So like if I want to show a little bit of return of upper arm right here, and then have a little bit more coat here as a bib, like say on a golden retriever or this Cairn Terrier, I can actually use the tool to go right down along the front of the leg And then that's my breaking line for what would be pattern, what would be longer hair and what would be shorter. Same with rear angulation. I can set this in nice and tight right here. Was that me that did that? And then leave this coat back here to fill in my skirt. So maybe I don't want to rake it as much. It's happened to me a time or two where I'll be working with a client, with a student, and I'll say, okay, rake this dog. And I'll turn around and look 15 minutes later and there's no hair left. So it's like, you want to be strategic and you really want to just keep watching to make sure you're not getting too much hair off. Now I have to say though, this Andis rake is like one of the first tools that was even a worry, because it takes so much coat out. You can rake the tail, just support the tail while you're doing it. And I find if I rake against the dogs so that the dog can pull forward, they're most comfortable. If I try to hold the tail up to rake it, they get real uncomfortable real fast. But if I just let him kind of keep it down, there, he's starting to get used to it a little more now, then he will ease into it. So like on the top of a setter tail, setter's supposed to be smooth on top and then have a flag hanging below. I'll rake the top of the setter tail out to get all that fuzzy stuff that's sticking up. That's a really nice use for it. Yeah, so you can also work on a coat that is too soft with it. So like, let's say you have a Labradoodle going through coat change and it has really super duper soft hair. If you rake out the legs a little bit with every grooming, you will help the coat change into a not harsher necessarily, but you take the undercoat out so you're leaving the more harsh coat, and therefore it would mat a little bit less. Same with beards and faces. If you rake some of the beards and faces that you work with, like schnauzers with big giant like beard explosions, and doodles that get matted, if you rake those out some, they get matted less. They hold less water because you're leaving the harder coat and not the softer coat, so they dry faster, they smell better. Oh, brush burn. So she's asking if you can brush burn them with one of these. I never have. You know, I get more irritation going backwards than I do going forwards, but I've never had actual brush burn. You do have to be careful of like catching the toe skin. If you're gonna rake like the big fuzzy golden feet, you could potentially grab the skin between the toes. You can grab the flank skin. When you're doing the sides of the face, you can grab the ear hole. There are places, lips, where you could possibly have a problem. So just be careful, just like you would if you were using a clipper blade. Everywhere where you could snag a clipper blade, you can also snag a rake. So you just want to be careful. Now, when you're taking out a heavy duty amount of coat, like for example, the front of an English Cocker's legs and it's like toe overgrown, you might get some irritation because you're pulling out so much hair in one day. So you might want to talk to the client about doing a couple sessions. You know, say we got a lot out today and it doesn't look great yet, but the next time you come back, we'll be able to get more. It's going to look even better. If you feel like it's just too much for one day. It's also a great way to keep a coat that you're clippering that shouldn't be clippered in a little bit better condition. So like, you know, any of your hard-coated terriers or sporting dogs that you're clippering the backs on, if you rake them before you clipper them and even a little after you clipper them, it will help to get some of the undercoat out and therefore keep a better wiry texture to the coat in general. So that's always a really good use for the tool. Deshedding, if you're not charging extra for your deshedding, you should be. And certainly you can do sessions. You could do a 5-minute dematting session, a 10-minute dematting session, a 15-minute dematting session, and charge them for those sessions, depending on the dog. And certainly then this tool pays for itself on one dog if you're doing dematting or deshedding with it, I'm sorry. It's not a great tool for dematting. I wouldn't recommend using it for dematting. Just use a brush for dematting. However, using it to thin the coat out so that in the future the dog mats less is how it would help with dematting.